Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, you're looking at a map of the wind field at the surface early this morning here on Monday. And what we see here is that main frontal boundary, which is right here, has cleared us. That's the one that delivered some precipitation late this weekend. And if you just notice, look across the rest of the United States. Other than some stronger winds coming across the Great Lakes, giving us some lake effect snow today, and also some very cold air that's still across the northern tier of the U.S., this upcoming week is going to be relatively benign until we get to the end of the week and the weekend. But let's go ahead and take a look at how much precipitation we did get at the end of last week. And we can see that looking back over the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation through this morning on Monday, there were a few pockets that did end up grabbing about an inch of precipitation. And overall, this is a good signal as we look forward because that moisture getting back into our areas helped to really work against our longer-term drought stresses. So last week, at the end of the week, we saw the newest update here of the drought monitor. And we do notice that still Virginia, North Carolina, and parts of northern South Carolina is still sitting in drought. I want to just show you, like we normally do here, how much things have changed. And I really want you to just see what's going on in this part of the country as well. Getting back into Texas, Oklahoma, and the lower Mississippi River Valley, an area still kind of encased in drought here. So we go to our change maps, and we'll see that just over the last week, we saw improvement. Again, that one class improvement across the state was primarily due to the previous system. That was the one that came through and produced the very heavy snows in parts of Virginia that just locked up traffic on I-95. But take a look here. And I want to do this. I want to go back over the last 3 months and just show you the extent. Wait, let's go 3 months here, not 2. There we go. Now you can see the extent of that drought development in this part of the Cotton Belt. Now, why I'm bringing this up again is because we're just looking for any sort of indication of the pattern evolving in a way that for the crops that that are grown here in North Carolina compared to what we have in the Cotton Belt and the Corn Belt and other places, we just want to see the drought evolution throughout winter to know what to expect getting into spring. So that's why we keep coming back to these maps. Now, in the near term, much of this next week is going to be drier for most of the United States. This is a look at the 10-day precipitation anomalies. And outside of a system that comes in here, comes in here, there we go, and then runs over the Rockies and then dives into the Midwest, much of the rest of the country is going to be on the drier side of things. And any would-be systems that are going to develop here are initially going to develop offshore. Now, I'm going to watch this one that's coming through this Friday for the potential for it to be cutting into North Carolina. You're going to see what I mean by that in just a few moments. But before that, you've got several days of high pressure and sunshine that are coming in. Now let's understand why this is the case. Then we'll get into the details. I'll press this out into a longer range forecast, and then we're going to finish up with a quick talk about South America. So to understand what's going on right now, we've got to have a discussion about La Nina. All right. Our La Nina continues to show that it's fading over here in this part of the Pacific, but it's maintained itself in a pretty broad area here. In other words, the ocean temperatures have been cold and steadily cold, but the trade winds are no longer just blasting across the Pacific like that. Now, I've been sharing that message with you going back to late December. Now, with an east-focused La Nina, what I mean by the coldest water being here, the jet stream tends to want to ridge over the west and bring in troughs into the east. Now, for that particular pattern to deliver a lot of precipitation to the whole of the East Coast, you got to put a big ridge up into Greenland. So we're going to be on the lookout for that particular feature. Now, what could also get us there is the behavior of the MJO. Remember, that's a region that starts here off of Africa and goes out across the open Pacific to about there. This is the MJO region. It goes from phase 1 here all the way over to phase 8, about there, and they're evenly spaced. We're going to watch to see how things shift around over here in phases 7 and 8, because that could be a clue about what to expect as we move forward for our weather here in North Carolina. And yeah, it's amazing. The weather half a world away is impacting us. So what we have right now is that the MJO is currently sitting in phase 7. And the models are forecasting it to briefly pop out into phase 8, but not really strongly. They're going to collapse back toward this inner circle, which we call null space. So what's the difference? If the MJO were to really strongly come out into phase 8 and follow the line I'm drawing right now over to phase 1 or 2, this would indicate a lot of change in the tropics. But instead, it's going to stall out in this area, phase 7 and 8. And this is what we know about it. When there's a La Nina and we stall out over phase 8, okay, it tends to produce deeper troughs in the east with ridging over the west. So the jet stream's got to do this, all right? Now, this is what I want to watch carefully. If we get this ridge, where I just put that H, to build toward Greenland and punch through that area. This tends to give us a much more active, storm track from the Mid-South and the South, cutting right across the Carolinas. We're looking for that. That's what the key is going to be, because phase 8 can sometimes get us there in January. So let's go see what we've got here. Let me shrink this up so I can grab the bar there. There we go. You see what we have right now? Do you notice the phase 8? See the ridge in place here, the trough over the east, and this weak ridge sitting in this place? Now, it's going to modulate and fluctuate as it would, with days going by. But getting into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week, we just continue to see troughs of lower pressure here, which means I'll show you what that means in terms of temperatures in a few moments. But if the flow's coming over and down like that, you're on the wrong side of this trough to be seeing precipitation. That's the convergent side of the trough. The divergent is over here. That's where the low pressure systems will develop. You'll see that in a second. But what we've got by the time we get into this weekend is, notice this. The models are really trying their best to open this pattern up temporarily, but they just want to go back to shifting this ridge a little bit farther to the west, which means that trough will start to curl in here into the Mid-South. Now, why this is important is as we get out there past this week into next week, okay, we're going to start to watch systems develop here or systems develop in the Mid-South and move across North Carolina. And that's important. What made this all possible was the increase of heights here. That means the jet stream is retreating to the north in that area. Okay, I got all that out. Let's now see what it actually means. That was the front last night on Sunday night. It's cleared. Now watch this. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, high pressure in place. Getting into Thursday. What I'll watch for by Thursday, two things. Got a little clipper system that's coming through my home state of Illinois early in the morning. Then as I played this forward, we could watch the development of a coastal low here. Now, why is that coastal low offshore? Because the trough was like that. Remember me showing you that? So what you end up getting, if you cut that trough in place, in half, it's just always the downwind side of it that has the development of low pressure. So that's going on first. So possibly getting into Thursday night into Friday morning, we could see this area from that little clipper that went through Illinois producing some precip. But that's not much. That big low stays offshore until we get out here to Friday, working our way into Saturday. Now, the latest European model has a system that comes in like this, and by Saturday midday is getting somewhere over this part of southern Illinois into the Mid-South. Now that's Saturday at noon. Now that system right now, by the European operational model, is forecast by next weekend, really next Sunday morning, to basically follow this track through Saturday and then cut right in through here. Now, I'm just going to put out a disclaimer. When you look at this and you see, whoa, I see deep blues here, that would mean snow for a big portion of North Carolina. So many things have to come together to make this, and we do not have multi-model agreement on it. I'm showing you the latest update so you know what to watch this week. That system then comes right out and pushes out very quickly. Notice this, it stays out here. Now, what needs to happen in order for this to come together is build a bigger ridge in place there. So what that will do is that'll take that system, dip it south, and then keep it closer to the U.S. coast. Then you're going to get some of that white stuff in North Carolina. As it stands, there's too much variability in this to really give you an accurate prediction on where this thing is going to go. So I need you to be watching late this week and weekend. Check out weather.gov. If you want, get my morning reports. I'll include information each day about this system in my morning reports. But after that, I think the pattern's really going to start to shift around a bit. I'm going to get to that in a second. First, I do want to show you that if we just take that operational model run, the 0Z ECMWF from Monday, and just stitch it together, you can see where the snow is going to be. And the models right now are quite generous with it here. Again, we do not know if this is going to occur. We need to pay close attention to the model trends all week to see if it shakes down. A way we can kind of build some confidence in that is by looking out here at this particular graphic. And what it is it's a map that shows the probability of getting an inch of snow by the time we get to next Sunday night. Okay, that would include this system. And you notice those probabilities are pretty low. They're under 40%. Better in the Appalachian Mountains, but that's always the case. So we just see here that that next system is not yet fully resolved in the models. It does appear that it's going to be here and that it's going to eject out into the ocean. But what it does here is all depend on its timing, which really tells us about the temperature pattern and then what could eventually occur here with that moisture. So I want you to know I'm going to watch it all week. Sign up for my daily reports and you'll get information on that. But let's now transition to what happens after this. You see the jet stream by day 10. See this trough? That trough was here. And you see this ridge? That ridge was there, which means that the pattern is retrograding, moving to the west. Now, what's the significance of that? That means systems are going to make the turn earlier across the United States, giving us better chances in this area to see more active storm track. And the models are just now picking up on that. Look out here at week 2. You see how this is showing up wetter than average? I expect to see a much more active storm track pulling systems into this area as we press here into the 3rd week of the month of January. So get ready for that. That's going to be an important shift as we get out there that far. After that, take a look at these temperatures, okay? This is Monday's high temperatures compared to average. Watch the buildup of warmth in the midsection of the country while we're still dealing with high temperatures here in the 30s and low 40s across North Carolina. We could see by Wednesday, getting into Thursday, temperatures in the 50s and 60s in the midsection of the country. We moderate, we get our temperatures back toward average, but it's going to take till Thursday to get there. Got a lot of clear skies giving us colder temperatures overnight. So you're going to see the sunshine, but it's going to be a while for the temperatures to warm up. They get warm and kind of stay there Thursday into Friday. But then as we watched into the weekend, that's when that system kind of curls through. So we're going to watch it very carefully here. Now beyond that, let's go take a look at day 5 through 10. Now day 5 through 10 is where we start to see the pattern retrograding, which means the ridge moves west and the colder air returns. See that colder air there? And it really shows up day 10 through 15. So we're going to go back over into kind of a full winter pattern here looking out there longer term. So we've got to really be paying attention to this. Now, is there any indication of a polar vortex disruption at some point in January? We got to ask that question too, because that could really enhance this temperature pattern should it get lined up with it. Well, right now the polar vortex is doing exactly what you want it to do. It's just sitting strongly north of Greenland, and it looks like a perfect donut of strong winds. In fact, when you look out there, right now, it's way up here. The stronger the polar vortex, okay, the more tightly its grip is on the colder air. We do see a bit of shifting around. No major disruption like we saw last year. Last year at this point, the polar vortex was weakened, and it was setting us up for a brutally cold February. Not this year. It's sitting here. But I'm watching it carefully, because what I'm going to see is if that polar vortex, just seen in this ring of dark, cooler colors, as we play out here into the middle of the month and then toward the 3rd week of the month, it wants to retreat and go over towards Siberia. Well, Siberia's here, but northern Russia. And then it tries to maybe have something that comes sweeping back around here for that 3rd week. So I'm not saying yet that this polar vortex disruption is going to get down into the Hudson Bay and then connect with the troposphere. Remember, this is a stratospheric event. But I think we should be just paying a close attention to this as we get out there to the 3rd and 4th weeks of this month. Because the long-range European model shows this from January 21st to February 21st. If there's a place that hangs on to warmer weather, it's pretty far to the south. The models are being pretty generous on letting that cold air out at times from the north and west. And as you can imagine, with that pattern, you get this with your precip. That's right, that active Ohio River Valley, Tennessee Valley, those what we call Miller A systems or the Miller B systems. Those are the ones that takes tracks like this. Overall, I see above average precipitation through this part of winter for us. Now we need this. We got to get those soil moisture values back up going into spring. We want to be corrective on the drought. So overall, I'm pretty excited about this pattern. But last week, we did also have released to us the new long-range forecast maps. Let's go take a look at them. These are the seasonal forecast maps. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to look at, let's do this, February, March, and April. Now one of the important things is you still see some drier conditions here, right? But the model has slowly eroded its drier forecast. I think we're going to see an active Tennessee Valley to Ohio Valley storm track, which will bring better precipitation through our region. Now I'm going to do this, but I want you to understand that what I'm about to show you is just purely model output. We don't expect this to be highly accurate. We don't expect it to have a lot of skill. But I'm just going to flip this over to month by month, and what you're going to see is April into May and June of this year, the models east of the Mississippi River and around the Mississippi River Basin, so this whole area, are continuing to show us better chances at having above average precip through early spring. We got to watch that carefully. That's all complements of this. I'm going to flip this over and show you globally what the ocean temperatures are doing. You see by April, May, June, and beyond, we're starting to see the La Nina fading quickly, the atmosphere responding, building in some warmer ocean temperatures here, and the jet stream doing something a bit like this. Now, if it does that, that dip in the trough there is good. That's what we want to get for good spring moisture and a removal of our drought concerns moving forward. So this is what we're looking at in that longer term forecast. Now, let's come back to the near term now that we got a glimpse of what we're expecting longer term, and take a look here at what we expect out of South America. So right now, in Brazil's northern growing areas, let's go to Mato Grosso, precip has been good. They're sitting, slight, very slight deficit, but overall pretty good. The main problems have been south in Paraná, where there's nearly a 9-inch deficit in precipitation over the last 60 days. Rio Grande do Sul, where there's nearly an 8-inch deficit in precipitation over the last 60 days. The drought in these areas, southern Brazil, has been quite extensive. And over the next 10 days, we're watching two things. We're going to dry out in Brazil's northern growing areas. Now, that's not seen as a negative. They've been extremely wet. There's been a lot of flooding in Brazil's east where I put this X. But to see drier conditions here, the harvest efforts in this area are really going to crank up on first crop soybeans. Now that first crop of soybeans for the whole of Brazil is going to be much lower than initially forecast earlier in the year, because southern Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná, and Rio Grande do Sul, this has been the drought region. Now we're looking at a forecast map. And you see the precipitation here? This is coming on a front early next week that's going to go through through Argentina, Uruguay, and cut into Rio Grande do Sul and Paraná. This is going to be the first chance at getting rainfall in this area in a very long time, significant rainfall. Now, if that front fails to materialize, and this is still 7 days away, if that front fails to materialize, we are going to see a deepening of the drought in this area. Based off of some NDVI analysis, it's some of the lowest, vegetation health kind of view from space I've seen in a long time in South America, specifically southern Brazil and Argentina. So all week long, this will be watched carefully. Does this front materialize? Does it come through? And does it produce severe storms in this area? Oftentimes, droughts are broken on severe weather. So our friends to the south here in South America and this region are really dealing with a lot of adverse weather, and they've got another week of extremely dry conditions with temperatures in the upper 90s, lower triple digits. So this is going to continue to eat away at that crop. Okay, covered a lot today, but hopefully you found this informative and useful. I'll talk to you again on Monday, all right? Thank you.